Welcome to Bismarck Insights. I'm Mayor Mike Schmitz, and today we have with us our relatively newly elected municipal court judge, Judge Amanda Harris. Welcome to the program, and thank you for coming. I would just like to start out with having you share a little bit about yourself, a little background, and what led you to throw your name in the hat to try to be the municipal judge in the city of Bismarck.
All right, thanks Mayor. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to the public and talk to you about my job as Bismarck Municipal Judge. So a little bit about myself. I grew up with a law enforcement family. My dad worked in law enforcement. He's a retired deputy sheriff. And my mom was a ranch girl. So it was kind of a combination of law enforcement with hard work, which kind of led me into the direction from a young age in elementary school. My elementary teachers remember me telling them I was going to be a lawyer when I grew up. So it was decisions along the path that led me, that career path that led me. I went to the University of Mary for undergrad. I majored in social behavioral science with a law emphasis, which helps me understand people. It was a great major to have in this profession. I minored in philosophy, theology, and political science. So a diversity of issues. I went on to UND Law, and from there I worked in a nonprofit doing family mediation, mediating child welfare issues. My husband and I decided, where do we want to plant our family? And we came up with the conclusion, the rational conclusion that Bismarck would be the best place. So we moved back to Bismarck to plant our family, and I've worked for tribal governments, state governments, the federal government, and with some encouragement from other judges and attorneys is what led me to run for the Bismarck judge.
Well, thank you, and it was good. We had a change, obviously big change, because Judge Severin served for 42 years, and many times he ran unopposed, which is okay, I guess, but it's not always the best. We'd like to have choices. So, Your Honor, if you wouldn't mind just telling me a little bit about what your experience has been through the change, because change management is always difficult, and there's been obviously, I know, some bumps in the road that always occur. So let's talk about that, and what did you do to learn to get ready to do that?
So we're just taking it with grace, but there has been a lot of changes. Not only has Judge Severin retired after 42 years, and really I do feel blessed to walk into a well-oiled machine. Judge Severin did a lot for the city of Bismarck as the judge, but also for municipal judges across the state, developing a bench book, and a lot of people don't know that you only have to be law trained if your city is over 5,000 people. So most municipal judges in North Dakota are not law trained, and Judge Severin did a lot of work with training judges, so he left a strong legacy. With the change, not only him, but his clerk, Kathy, also retired after 44 years. So there was just, I think the biggest change has been staffing and staff changes. We have a new clerk, Nicole Hansen, she's doing wonderful. We have a new chief deputy clerk, and then we also have a new city attorney, new assistant city attorneys. So there's very fresh faces in the courtroom. And then the other big change is our caseloads. We've had over 25% growth in cases from 2023 to 2024. So when you think about such a small department absorbing such high caseloads, there has to be changes to be made for more efficient work, and that's kind of the learning curve. I was always accustomed to the fast pace of municipal court, but the paperwork and the backside and the amount of hours that goes into preparing for court and after court, it's a lot.
Yeah, and you addressed it. I mean, we had not only Judge Severin, but we kind of almost turned over the 3 of the 4 staff members effectively, right? And changed roles entirely.
Yes.
For everybody, and that's a lot. And then we've had some changes in the city attorney's office, which by and of itself bring additional changes that have impact, because you have different personalities and everybody handles things differently. Mm-hmm. So what are you seeing? Maybe a better question is, what do you think is causing the increased caseload? I might be diverting from where we were, but...
It could be speculation. I could be speculating, but it might be population growth. I'm not exactly sure the root. It could be just more cases. It could be because the police, I've thought of a lot of these things. It could be because the police department is more fully staffed, so we see more cases. I'm not, it could be more city ordinances that are passed, so we see more citations for things. I'm not exactly sure. I did bring a breakdown for you of where
Sure.
you can see the growth, so.
Yeah, maybe that's an important thing for people to know.
Yeah, so you can see, and when you look at the cases and the caseload, so in last year, 2024, we had 22,595 cases filed. And so when you think about that, that's almost 2,000 cases a month that we're having filed. Some of those are traffic cases, infractions, misdemeanors. So with the misdemeanors, we had just under 4,000. And then when you think about appeals, we only had 4 appeals out of all those cases. So it means we're doing a good job. Not very many cases are being appealed. We're resolving cases in efficient, fair manner. But just the amount of growth from each category is interesting. And it's mainly in the misdemeanors, but infractions as well is where we see a lot of the growth. And traffic tickets. So it's kind of growth across all categories.
So it's probably, could be argued, certainly there's population growth that's affecting some of that. And the police department, I think, is probably as close to fully staffed as they've been in a couple of years. That certainly puts more officers on the street, but that also makes our community safe, I think. We hope it is. It's supposed to. But that certainly would increase the number of items that would be coming through the court system.
Yep. When officers are fully staffed, they have more time to look for arrest warrants and serve arrest warrants, that kind of thing.
Sure. So 7 months, 8 months in now, what kind of changes have you begun to implement that are hopefully will help make it more efficient?
Yes, so we've actually implemented a lot of changes, and we're trying to figure out a pace that works for everyone to kind of get on these new learning curves. One major change was now citizens are able to pay their parking tickets online. And so we're working out the kinks still with that system, but we're hoping within the next year or so we will have an ability to pay traffic tickets, speeding tickets and traffic tickets online as well. So that's a big change. There's changes to how we collect restitution, victim witness fees, how that money is allocated. There's also, we're trying to collaborate with other agencies and Bismarck City departments. So collaborating with the health department on services that can be offered to really save money on incarceration rates, but to provide maybe a cheaper and more effective service on the front end. We want to be really responsible with our resources, our court resources. So we're making a lot of changes on how we look at what's the best bang for the buck.
Sure. And how to approach this. What do you think we can do as a community or the city to help improve some additional efficiencies for the movement of cases, or even maybe obviously reducing cases would be people follow the law, but
yeah, that would be the most common sense answer, right? Just don't run that stop sign. Make a complete stop at the stop sign, right? I don't know if there's anything that the community as people can do. I mean, if there's opportunities, people are always welcome to come to court and see how court works, and we are always open to ideas to be more strategic, more efficient. We've been meeting with different options, and like I said, community agencies. So we are always open to ideas, collaboration. If there's a community member out there that has an idea for a service that they could connect the court with, we don't always know what options are out there or what community programming people could offer, but definitely we're open to connecting people with services.
So I'm going to throw a bit, maybe it's a curveball, I didn't even look that far ahead, but Citizens Academy, I think, visited your courtroom recently. Did you get questions from people?
We did have a few questions. We didn't have a lot of time, so we didn't have as many questions as I would like, but we did have a few questions.
Anything interesting?
I'm trying to remember what they asked. Most of it was like the court structure, nothing too out of the ordinary. My favorite questions are when I talk to kids in school. I've been making rotations around the schools lately. I know you have as well.
Yep.
And the questions that kids have are very inquisitive, and I love answering their questions as well.
Yeah, well, they sometimes ask the right questions.
Yeah, and they do ask questions about, are there different judges, different types of judges? That's a question we get a lot.
So you were in private practice before rolling into this role or being elected to this role, what insight did that bring to help you with what you're doing now as the municipal judge in Bismarck?
Yeah, private practice was great. Private practice really allows you to hone your skills, and I worked in different jurisdictions. So I worked in federal court, and I primarily practiced criminal defense in federal court, only criminal defense, but I also practiced family law. So it gave me a dynamic of some family issues and that institution. And now I don't really have any private practice at all. I've really dwindled down my private practice to focus on the municipal court position. And the only cases I take now in my private practice are helping foster families adopt their foster children. And that's something that's close to my heart. Foster care is close to my heart. So that's the only type of cases I'm taking. But I also do maintain a mediation practice.
Sure.
So I'm a court-appointed mediator. I get assigned from judges, district judges, to mediate family law cases where children are in dispute. And so I do love that because I don't have to pass any judgment.
Yep.
So it's very different from going to my municipal court job and then doing a mediation in the afternoon or evening.
Yeah, well, your mediation's trying to guide the two sides together. Sometimes not easy.
Yeah, coming to a resolution. And sometimes municipal court is that way too.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have a trial and there's no disagreement. Everybody's agreeing on all the facts of the case, and it really is a legal question. So we've had a lot of interesting cases.
Well, I appreciate your passion for foster care. It is an important need, and if you're able to help people get through that process and either become foster parents or achieve getting the child in care. I too had a foster son for he's still my foster son, I guess. We still have an ongoing relationship once in a while. He's in touch, but it was an interesting process.
Yeah, and every child is so different. The process is so different, but foster kids have taught me a lot about compassion and humanity. So I really appreciate my experience, my family's experience. We've been fostering for 15 years. We adopted a teenager. We still have kids in our lives that have their own children and their own foster children.
Yep.
So
that's awesome.
It's amazing.
That's awesome. So during your time moving into the judgeship, have you had any difficulties or decisions that were difficult that you had to overcome, or maybe because you're on the other side of maybe somewhat on the other side of the table even? How is that going for you?
I think the most difficult cases have been public nuisance cases. If I think about all the cases and decisions I have to make, those are the ones that are most heartbreaking, I think, and we see the most emotion in the courtroom. And those are cases where there might be a dog bite, or a dog has attacked somebody or multiple people, and the court has to determine if it's a public nuisance, and then if so, what to do with the animal. So there's been a few times where I've had to make that tough decision to euthanize the family pet, and emotions run high, and it's heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching, but I also explain that I have to do what's best for the community and for the protection and safety of the community, so sometimes those hard decisions just have to be made.
And I know I find it even sitting in the city commission, sometimes you have to make a decision that's, you're right, best for the community, which may be against what you would like to personally think you could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
My dog is from the pound as well, but we have to put the community safety first in those situations.
So have you learned any other things that are about being judged that you are surprised by?
The only surprising thing really is the amount of paperwork behind the scenes. I was familiar with the pace of municipal court, but it's really behind the scenes the amount of plea agreements that I review, bench warrants that are executed, and just the time that really goes into the position that is not in the public, that is not in the courtroom,
Right.
And the time and effort that goes into that, and just trying to strategize. One of the surprises was I get to swear in new police officers, and I try to give them a rallying speech before they start their careers with Bismarck, and it's one of my favorite things to do. I really enjoy talking to police officers as they start their careers. I also get to travel around to the schools and talk to kids, as I mentioned, and so that's been a welcome surprise that I get to embrace and teach people about the Bismarck judge.
Great. So what do you find is the relationship is for you and the police department, because that's probably the largest area where things are initiated, at least that would come before you, and then and how is it evolving with the relationship with the city attorney's office, because those are prosecuting attorneys.
Yeah, I don't think about the relationship too much. You know, we're all there to do a job. I love swearing in officers, as I said, but we're separate branches of government. So I kind of make it a point not to get too, close or, rub shoulders too much with the other departments, because, we are a separate branch of government. So I want to make it very clear, and I think the city attorney's office sees that too, that I'm not there to make friends. I'm really there to do a job, which is to be impartial and to be fair and to judge cases on the facts and the merit, the law. And I hope that I do that. So I hope that they look at my position and respect the position and respect what I'm doing in court. And that's what I hope to achieve and earn, is
Sure.
the respect.
And that's what we would expect. I think it's the role. I mean, it's the judicial branch of our local government, and it's to enforce the rules and orders and ordinances and the laws that are passed, whether it's our current commission or a prior commission, and then to pass that judgment as fairly as you can. So, what do you see going forward for the community? What things should we be looking for? What things may we need to change for municipal court? I ask the question because I'm heading into budget season at some point in time, and we have to look at that so we can be adequately funding there too.
Yeah, the things that we're looking for, like I said, one of the big things is just shifting how there's multiple goals of sentencing. And so one of the things that we're looking at is rehabilitation, but also using those resources. Punishment is also one of the goals of sentencing. So it's balancing all of those items and really I would like to put the burden of rehabilitation onto other community service programs, other agencies, other nonprofits in the area that are out there doing this work already. Some of our clients overlap and have a lot of overlap. So I want to eliminate where there's some overlap and be really responsible, but also make sure that we have some accountability and we're maintaining a good service for the community.
Sure.
We want safety is our number one, priority, but also being fair and impartial. So we want to uphold constitutional rights. We want to make sure that we're going through cases quickly and efficiently, but also balancing and making sure that people understand their constitutional rights and are making informed decisions when they go through the court process.
Sure. So in municipal court, do we have what you would consider a lot of repeat offenders, and how is that affecting your judgment?
Yeah, I think there is a fair amount of repeat offenders in any court system, not just here, but there are, and sometimes there's not. Sometimes people are traveling through, there's a lot of variety of what we see, but with repeat offenders, it's similar to like parenting. I say funnel parenting. If you make poor decisions, you're going to have harsher consequences. But if you make good decisions and you're going to treatment and maintaining sobriety and doing the things that the court has ordered you to do, the court's going to lessen up those restrictions and use those resources maybe on somebody who's not making the best decisions.
Sure. So let's talk about that a little bit, the types of cases. I don't think we really touched on it, but for people to understand, what types of things come to municipal court versus district court?
Yeah, so municipal court has a limited jurisdiction. So we hear Class B misdemeanors and lower, so infractions, traffic tickets, B misdemeanors. A district judge will hear A misdemeanors, C felony, B felony, A felony, double A felony. So all the way up to very serious life imprisonment type cases. In municipal court, the maximum sentence that I could order for jail would be 30 days on each case. And sometimes people do have multiple cases, so they might go to jail for more than 30 days. But in the scheme, municipal court is like a people's court. We see a lot of people. We see a lot more people than district court, but we see them at low-level offenses. So we want to try to catch them, make an intervention before they get to that district level and continue to commit crimes or go down a criminal path.
So let's help people understand the differentiation between a B misdemeanor and a A.
Yeah, so it's the level of offense. So, and really how they are differentiated is based on the sentence, how long they can be sentenced. So an A misdemeanor, you can serve up to a year in jail. And those would be, a district judge would handle those types of cases. So an infraction is similar to a similar process to criminal, but it's not a crime. And that's because the maximum penalty is a $1,000 fine. So there's no jail time associated with infractions. So we see a lot of infractions, but we also see a lot of crimes as well.
So let's define. Let's let people know, like, what is an example of. Just because I don't think people really understand.
Yeah, I don't want to get it, confused with the legalese.
Yeah.
So infractions, and the law changes. So like a minor in consumption or possession of alcohol used to be a B misdemeanor.
Right.
Now that has been reduced to an infraction. So minors can no longer go to jail on that infraction. Sometimes they end up going to jail if they don't show up to court and they have a warrant for their arrest.
Because that's another violation.
And then I say, you're wasting resources. You're going to jail on something you don't need to go to jail for. Let's solve this issue. So infractions can also be possession of less than a half an ounce of marijuana or marijuana paraphernalia are common infractions. Park violations, if you're in the park past curfew, park violations are infractions, which is contrasted to trespass. So in the summertime, we see a lot of park violation infractions, and in the wintertime, we see a lot of criminal trespass cases. Criminal trespass is a Class B misdemeanor. So misdemeanors would be driving under suspension, criminal trespass. Those are the most common.
And I think that helps people understand the differentiation. And so we're not, in municipal court, we're not seeing a case where someone had a felony of, attacking someone with deadly intent or potential deadly intent.
Yes. We do take criminal histories into factors with sentencing. So even if you come in on a driving under suspension case, if you have a violent history of felonies from district court, that is going to have an impact on your potential sentence.
And that's really, I was trying to make sure people understand that your role, although it's extremely important because it really is the front end of trying to get someone back on the right track.
Right.
Without putting a real big onus on them of maybe years in prison or something like that.
Right. And one thing that municipal court does not do that most people don't know is that we do not have jury trials. So if somebody is facing jail time and they would like to request a jury trial, then their case would be bumped up to district court because we only have bench trials. So I'm the only trier of fact in municipal court.
And that's also a good point. So it's not a civil case that's
Yes.
coming before you. These are violations of local ordinances and laws at the state level that are to be administered by the municipal court.
That's correct. We do not practice, the municipal court does not handle any juvenile cases, so kids who have been charged with any crimes. We do have some tobacco offenses, but other than that, we don't, if there's an assault and it's a juvenile, a child, we don't hear those cases. We don't hear any family law cases, so municipal court is not going to be doing the divorce. Those will all be handled by district court. We don't do small claims. It is very focused on traffic offenses, infractions, and those Class B misdemeanors within the city of Bismarck.
Sure. So as the community continues to grow, and I realize 8 months of history, but you've been in the community, so you understand the community. What do you see are the opportunities and then the challenges for municipal court?
The challenges would just be staffing and maintaining with the growth, maintaining a quality service, and strategizing on how to be efficient and with the resources that we have. And then the positives would be educating the community on what it is we do, but also seeking out services that can help take some of the burden off the court and maybe allow other agencies to fill the gap for those services and those needs for the clients that we have.
So what types of services in specific would you feel would be helpful or be an opportunity for those not-for-profits to maybe jump in and take on?
Yeah, so we've met with a few already, and we've also met with probation services and other type services just to try to learn more about what they can offer. But we're looking for peer support specialists, sober living homes, at treatment services, any type of community services where people can serve their community service. We do have community service programs that we utilize. And we're open to options of anything that can go to rehabilitation. Mental health services is definitely a huge one. So there's a lot of services out there that that our citizens that come through municipal court are in need of, and we want to be able to, we order those services, but sometimes if we can have somebody who's in the back of the court that can fill out an application right there and then, it sticks a little better than if we
Right.
just send them out with a court order saying go find the service,
Right.
if we have it already ready for them.
So are there any technology items that would be of help to you that we should be looking at from
Yeah.
a city funding standpoint?
Technology, we've been looking at interpreter. We have a lot of different languages that come through municipal court. So we're always looking for interpreter and services, technology for that. Maybe we're looking at maybe iPads or something, so we can have interpreters zoom in for
Okay.
people. We also have, very unique languages, Marshallese, Chickees,
Yeah.
languages. So finding interpreters and services that can accommodate some of the unique needs that we have has been a challenge, and we're still exploring options and solutions.
Okay. Well, Judge Harris, thank you for joining me today on Bismarck Insights. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we've opened the door a little bit behind the scenes, so to speak, for people to understand what really goes on at municipal court.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.